What is your biggest fear in life? Spiders, snakes, heights, large crowds, public speaking. I don't know what it may be, but I know when I was growing up, one of my biggest fears that I had in life was riding a roller coaster. Then I decided when I was going to college, it was time to grow out of that fear of roller coasters, and I decided that I was going to take it one step at a time. And so this one time I was offered this opportunity to ride one of those massive swings that you see. They're typically off the side of a cliff, which is a great way to start um, getting off of this. But it's about 80 to about 100 feet, kind of up off the air, and you kind of start soaring through the air. I'll show you a picture afterwards if you want to see what one looks like. And in true fashion, the people that I was going to ride this with came up with the idea that we should ride it backwards, not knowing that this is my first adventure at this. And I said, well, why not? If we're going to do, let's just go ahead and just do it backwards and just really knock this thing out. And so I go and we get on and we start to ride it backwards. And the next thing that you know, I'm flying backwards, having the time of my life on this swing for the very first time. And so now you can find myself trying to persuade, not currently, my wife to try to ride every roller coaster that we can find at Dollywood or anywhere else that we go. Um, and so we like to have all of them. She likes, I think it's Fire Chaser. I can't remember. It bangs up my knees, so I like Wild Eagle. It's a little bit more free. But we find ourselves riding all these different roller coasters now. And I even have the goal of one day going skydiving if anyone would like to join me, because what sounds more fun than free falling from thousands of feet in the air, out of a plane? I don't know. So I had the idea, the goal of doing that one day as well. But what do you know, or what is interesting about fear is that so many people have a fear of something, and the word fear, or a version of the word fear, is mentioned around 520 times in the Bible. Um, Little over 300 or 400 different verses you can see it mentioned. Starting in Genesis 9:2, after the flood has ended and Noah and his family start to exit the ark. And then it kind of wraps up there in Revelation 19:5, when rejoicing in heaven is spoken of. But fear is mentioned all throughout it, and how we should realistically be living our life fearless, but also have a respectful fear for the creator of the world. And so I mention all of this because recently in the past, I was reading an article from a psychologist instructor at Northeastern University, and she had done some research trying to determine what the 10 biggest fears of people in the world are today. And so she had this list of 10. We're going to go through it tonight, and I'm going to kind of go through the 10 first, then we're going to dive into more of the meat of it, and then kind of come back and touch back on it. But the number one fear that people had was change. We talked about a little bit about this morning, because sometimes we don't want to drop our leaves in the fall time like the trees do, because we want to cling to what we know, cling to what we are comfortable with. And when we think about change, we have to realize that we live in an ever-changing world, which is happening more and more rapidly every day. But despite this fact that we are living in an ever-changing world, many people fear change, so they simply just try to resist it at all cost. This can cause us to miss out on countless opportunities that come our way. We even run the risk of being stagnant in our life and staying basically stuck in a rut because we avoid change at all cost. We try to steer clear of it if at all possible. And typically, this is where you hear the phrase that everyone loves so very much. Well, that's just the way that we've always done it. And it can hinder us. It can be a hindrance to us. And the second one that she mentions is loneliness. The fear of loneliness can sometimes cause people to resist living alone. They can stay in bad relationships because they're afraid of being by themselves. They could stay in a friend group because they don't want to go life without having any friends, simply because they're afraid that this change, or trying to find new friends, could cause them to be lonely. And while it is smart to ward off loneliness because it can be harmful for our health, it's also important to remember that we need to surround ourselves with the right people. And we need to surround ourselves with heavenly social interactions, I guess you could say, things that are of above. And the number three thing she mentions is failure. One of the most common fears that people have in this world is a fear of failure. It's a fear of being embarrassed to fall or to fail. And it may reinforce our beliefs that, well, I just don't measure up. I just don't stack up. I'm just not good enough. And so if we start to have this thought, we start to have this fear, we also might avoid doing things because we're afraid that success isn't guaranteed. Therefore, we might fail. And since there's a risk of failure, we just won't do it at all because if we don't do it, then we can't fail. So the old saying is true, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And so if you never take the opportunity, you'll miss every single one of them. The fourth thing that she mentions on this list of fears that hold people back is rejection. Many people avoid things like meeting new people, public speaking, going out into large crowds, whatever it may be, because they're afraid of rejection, or they try to, they're afraid to enter into new relationships, make new friends, things of that nature, because they're afraid of rejection. So sometimes even people who are married are afraid to ask maybe their longtime spouse or someone else close to them questions because they're still afraid of rejection and they don't want to hear no. And so this can keep us also, it can also keep us stuck. And so while rejection stings, it doesn't hurt as much as a missed opportunity because we failed to ask, because we failed to try. The fifth thing that she lists on the fifth thing that she lists as a fear that holds people back is uncertainty. This is another thing that we talked a little bit about this morning. But people often avoid trying some things or trying different things because of a fear of uncertainty, because of the fear of the unknown. And so, after all, there's no guarantee that this thing that we're doing that is new will make life better, will make life any different at all. And so they just stay in the same surefire way because that's the way that we've always done it. And it's something that is certain. It's something that I know of. And so whether you're afraid to accept a new job because of the uncertainty that comes with it, or you're afraid to move to a new city because of the uncertainty that comes with it, it can be a fear that can hold us back. The sixth thing that she lists is something bad happening. I think a lot of us probably conjure this one up in our head. It's an unfortunate, it's an inevitable fact that bad things are going to happen in life. And sometimes the fear of doom, or the fear of doom and gloom, I guess you could say, prevents us from enjoying life. We can't prevent bad things from happening at all times, but we can't allow the fact that things are going to happen in our life to hinder us from living the life that we should be living. Well, if I don't do, if I do this, then this over here will happen. And if I do this, then I know that this might possibly happen. And all of a sudden we get caught into this trap of living in this fear. And all of a sudden it holds us back and we make our life more reserved instead of living out there and living for Christ. So we can't spend all of our energy and all of our time of life planning for the worst that may never even happen. The number seven thing that she puts on her list is getting hurt. Hopefully, your parents, when they were bringing you up, uh, taught you to look both ways before you cross the street instead of just running out there, just all free, you know, just going out there as you can. But quite often, sometimes we can act like we weren't taught that. And we can have this fear of becoming emotionally overprotective of situations. We try to overprotect ourselves from everything because of the fear of uncomfortable feelings, or maybe being judged or having a harsh word or something that might prevent us from going into more deep and more meaningful connections. So we fail to open up because we felt that, well, I could be hurt if I open up too much to that person. The eighth thing that she mentions is being judged. It's something that I know a lot of us probably deal with a lot as well. And it's normal to want to be liked by your peers and by people around you. But the fear of being judged can prevent us from being who we truly are. And you can see this in the world as well today because people will be one person at work and another person Sunday morning at church because they're afraid the people at work may judge the person that they really want to be. We can't be that way. We can't be afraid of being judged. We need to be who Christ has called us to be. So we have to try to act the way that Christ wants us to act in all circumstances. And we just have to realize that the truth is that some people will judge us harshly no matter how you act, no matter what you say or what you do, and they are going to do that. The ninth thing that she lists on her list is inadequacy. This is probably something that I guess maybe I would struggle with more than others. But many people feel or have the fear that they're just not good enough. They just don't add up to what they claim or what they think they need to be. And therefore, they have a lack of self-esteem because they feel like they're not good enough. And they're always measuring themselves up to other people. And therefore, they feel like they're always underachieving. We might even become a perfectionist in an effort to prove everyone wrong, which can be a whole nother thing into the spectrum. So the fear of inadequacy, I can't even pronounce it now, inadequacy can be deep rooted. It can be something that can really be hard to face head on. And we have to understand who we are and who we belong to. The 10th thing that she lists is the loss of freedom. Whenever I think about people having a fear of the loss of freedom, some of y'all will probably get this, but I don't remember when it became a law, but when wearing a seatbelt first became a law, go back and watch those interviews. They are some of the greatest interviews that you could ever watch. And the people claiming that it is taking away their freedom because they now have to wear a seatbelt. It's one of the first things I always think of when people having this fear of losing their freedom. And when we think about losing our freedom does not really come from this world. Yes, the world can put different restrictions and different things on them, but our true freedom and true freedom in itself comes from Christ, and that's something that the world cannot take away. And so we have to be careful with that. So if you take a look at the words faith and the word fear, you can see something extremely interesting with the both of them. If you ask someone what is faith, you will get one of two answers. It is a belief or a belief that leads to some kind of reaction. And so you believe that something is going to be there. Well, when you look at the word fear, it's something very similar. It almost comes to a identical thought, because fear is not something that has happened, but instead a thought about what could happen. We have a fear because we believe this or that will occur, and therefore we flee from it or freeze up in the moment. We start to stress and we start to panic, and we plan our entire day over things that could potentially take place, about things that could potentially arise during our day. And when you look at facing fear head on, one of the first passages that comes to my mind in the Bible instantly goes to Daniel 4, which is where we're going to spend most of our time this evening. But in Daniel 4, you have the marvelous story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The story begins like this, starting in Daniel 4, verse 8. It says this: Therefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came forward and miraculously accused the Jews. They declared to King Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that every man who hears the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom you have appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, pay no attention to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in furious rage, commanded that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought. So they brought these men before the king. Does this sound a little bit like our world today? They are essentially saying, well, do this or we're going to ruin your life. Do this or we're going to cancel you from the world, or I guess cancel you from whatever. Do this or we will get rid of you. These individuals and many others basically faced with a do this or else. Do this or your life will end up in a fiery furnace. We're going to take your life if you do not turn over and you do not submit to what we want you to submit. So even knowing that death was their punishment, these faithful three understood that the real value of life was not found here on earth. And it's something that we need to remember as well. But instead they had their eyes on the living God and the hope that is found in him. So in our life today, we should not be striving to live long per se. We should be striving to live right. And there's a major difference there, because you can live long and not live right. And you can live short and live right. What is important is living right and living for the Lord, which is something that these three knew and these three understood about life. It was useless to them if they lived a long, long life, yet forsake the living God, because, well, their reward would not be there at the end. So Nebuchadnezzar, in all of his furious rage, brings these three before him. And as we pick up in verse 14 of Daniel 4, it says this: Nebuchadnezzar answered and said to them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image that I have set up? Now, if you are ready when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, to fall down and worship the image that I have made, well and good. But if you do not worship, you shall immediately be cast into a burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you out of my hands? Who is that God? Who is going to deliver you out of my hands? Now, the three are faced with the ultimate decision here in life, and a decision that probably none of us here have ever faced. Submit to this God or lose your life. Something that in other countries people do face today. People in the early church faced this as well, and one day here in America, we could very well face this, and we need to be ready in case we do. But these three are faced with the ultimate decision. They are now before the king, and he is commanding them to worship the golden image that has been set before them and before the people, essentially taunting the three that no God can save them from his hands. No one is strong enough, no one is powerful enough to save him or save them from his hands. So it is now a do this or I will kill you scenario. And what do they say? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, picking up in verse 16, answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hands, O king. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. You want to talk about faith and you want to talk about having the courage to actually stand up for what you have faith in. This right here is it. They are faced with death, and the response is, if this be so, our God who we serve is able to do what? Our God who we serve is able to deliver us. Do we approach life this way today? I'm afraid we don't approach it this way enough in our life today. Could you imagine how powerful this world would be um, if we do this or we will take away your job is the threat towards us. If that be so, if that be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us. Do this or we're going to stop being your friend or associating with you or cast you off or cancel you. If that be so, our God whom we serve will what? Deliver us. Do this or the world is going to judge you. The world is going to say you are a terrible person. If that be so, but our God whom we serve is able to deliver us. You can circle, highlight, underline the end of that. Our God, who we serve, can, will, and has already delivered us, and he will deliver us on that final day. Do this, insert whatever threat you may want. If this be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us. We should live by that. That should be something that is written on the tablet of our heart, something that we carry with us all throughout our life. This one time back in high school, I've probably told some of y'all this story. We had a really wild and interesting fundraising opportunity brought to us. I don't even think the place is still here now, but it was really close over here to the Apple Barn. But there was a local corn maze that was there for a couple years, and they had this idea that they didn't want to hire employees, I guess, to work the corn maze, and so instead they would find local groups that needed help fundraising, and they would allow us to work the corn maze and scare people in order to raise money for whatever we had, which as a bunch of like 16, 17-year-old boys in the baseball team, we thought that sounded awesome. And so off to the corn we went. And we had a time, but I remember our team was all about it. And group by group, people would come through, and then we'd jump out like a bunch of crazy people, and scare them right through the corn. And they'd jump out, they'd scare, and all these other things would happen, and they'd take off running, and some would just kind of stand and freeze in place. And then there was this one guy that came through, and he was all by himself. And I remember we kind of look at each other through the corn because we knew where each other was at, and we're just kind of grinning because we're like, oh, this is the perfect one. He's all by himself. You know, he's the lone little sheep out there, no one to protect him, no one to save him. And so we all jump out, and instead of getting the reaction that we all wanted, he just kind of smiles and he says, hi, and just keeps on walking. Uh, but we all just kind of stood there and we all just kind of looked at one another in just disbelief as to how in the world did that not scare this? How are we unable to scare him? He's all by himself. There's no one around him. Family, there is something so powerful about a Christian who's not scared of anything. Some people will accuse that person of being arrogant or maybe cocky because they seem to not have fear in anything. But in reality, they're living out exactly what is here in this story. God is able to deliver us. Therefore, why should I fear? God is able to deliver us. Therefore, why should we fear? Oh, how powerful the family of God and our different congregations would be if we had that mindset in the world today. When the world presses in against us, when we face persecution, when we face trials, tribulations, all these different things, our God is able to deliver us. We can't let that sink into our heart enough. And that's fine. You can have my job because God is still going to provide a way for me. That's fine. You don't have to be my friend. You don't have to associate with me. You can try to cast me off because I have a friend in Jesus who's the best friend that you could ever have. That's fine. You could even take my physical life because I have a real life that's awaiting me after this temporary life is over. Oh, how powerful it would be if we took that approach throughout our life. So now let's turn back to the story that we have here in Daniel 4 and pick up in verse 19, where it says this. Then Nebuchadnezzar was filled with fury, and the expression of his face was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times more than it was usually heated, and ordered some of the mighty men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their cloaks, their tunics, their hats, and their other garments, and they were thrown into the burning fiery furnace. Because the king's orders, because the king's order was urgent, and the furnace overheated. The flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell bound into the burning fiery furnace. Oh, Nebuchadnezzar really turned up the temperature, didn't he? This is probably one of my the part of the story you just kind of chuckle at, I guess, a little bit. But he really turned it up 7 times more than usual. He heated it up. And he had his mighty men bind up these 3 men and cast them into the fire. And at this point, it's overheated, which ends up killing his mighty men that he used to throw them in there in the first place. And the 3 are cast into the fire. They fall in, and just you know that Nebuchadnezzar was just about to sit back, relax, and enjoy what he had just taken place. Because no one can stand up to him. No one can defeat him. Yet that's not how it ends, as we pick up in verse 24 of Daniel 24, or Daniel 4. It says, the king Nebuchadnezzar was astonished and rose up in haste. He declared to his counselors, did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire? They answered and said to the king, true, O king. He answered and said, but I see 4 men unbound, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the appearance of the fourth is like a son of the gods. Can you imagine this scene if you're Nebuchadnezzar or if you're one of the people with Nebuchadnezzar? Here you are, your pride is at an all-time high, and you are fully taking advantage of the power that you have, casting people into a fiery furnace, which is a heinous thing to do. And instead of them being burned up as you desire, it is literally the complete opposite. You're so upset because these 3 people refused to worship you that you cranked up the fire 7 times higher than normal. And it was so overheated that you even lost 3 of your mighty men trying to put them in it. You look up, and there they are just walking around. Family, you can't ever doubt the power of the living God. And you can never doubt the fact that he is there in those moments. Nebuchadnezzar thought he had it all figured out. He thought that he could burn them up with fire. Yet he realized that the living God was the one that created the flame. It wasn't him. It was the living God. And the living God had control over that flame as well. So in verse 26, Nebuchadnezzar came near to the door of the burning fiery furnace. He declared, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out from the fire. And the satraps, the prefects, the governors, and the king's counselors gathered together and saw that the fire had not had any power over the bodies of those men. The hair of their heads was not singed, their cloaks were not harmed, and no smell of fire had come upon them. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him and set aside the king's commands and yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship any God except their own. You can circle, highlight, and underline all of verse 28. Therefore, I make a decree. Any people, nation, or language that speak anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be torn limb from limb, and their house laid in ruins. For there is no other God who is able to rescue in this way. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. The fire had done nothing to them. It didn't even singe the hair on their head. After realizing this, Nebuchadnezzar says something profound that I hope all of us can take with us when we leave here today. They yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship any God except their own. They yielded up their bodies. They weren't going to worship any other God except their own. Now, this is something that the nation of Israel struggled with mightily. And I still think we struggle with it in our world today because we propped up all kinds of things to be different gods in our life. And so you see, family, when these three had realized and understood is that this life that we have right now, this life that we live here on this earth is not the life. This life is not the life. This life is just temporary because this world is not our home. It's one of my most favorite hymns that we could ever sing. This world is not our home. We are what? Just a passing through. Just a passing through. We can't ever forget that. You see, the true life is awaiting us in heaven, yet so often we try to hold on to everything that this world has to offer. And we fail to realize that what this world offers fails to compare to what Jesus has offered us already. Family, compare the wonders of it fails the gifts that the world gives us fails to compare to the wonders of heaven. It fails to even come close to what we get to inherit one day when we get and we reach heaven. This life isn't the end, and praise God for that, because once this life here on this earth ends, our true life really begins. Something so much greater is ahead of us, and we can learn a lot about living out our life fearless from Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And if you think back to those 10 great fears mentioned at the beginning, the first thing that we mentioned is change. And change can be scary for people. And change is what Nebuchadnezzar wanted those three to do, wanted them to change their stance. However, they realized that a much greater change was before them. Because soon a change is coming where our mortal bodies will be changed into immortal bodies. And we will enter into the most marvelous place ever, not made with human hands, as you can see in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 50 through 53. It says, I tell you this, flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, nor does the perishable inherit the imperishable. Behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised imperishable, and we shall be changed. For this perishable body must put on the imperishable, and the mortal must put on immortality. 1 Corinthians 15, 50 through 53. Are you not happy that we have a change awaiting us one day? That's a change we ought to be able to look forward to. This earthly body that is breaking down, I made the joke this morning, day by day, your knees hurt more and more. Day by day, your back hurts more by more. But a new body is coming, and change is coming. Make sure that the change that you are about to have is a new body in heaven and not any eternal punishment in hell. Because as bad as your knees hurt now, the fire will hurt a whole lot more. So the living God is the same today as he was yesterday and as he will be tomorrow. A God that creates time doesn't need to change with time. We talked about that this morning. The second thing that we talked about at the very, very beginning was loneliness. Feeling alone can be one of the worst feelings in life. But if you look, and we can learn from the three of these individuals, what a beautiful example we have of how the family of God should be sticking together throughout these difficult times. All three of them stuck together. It wasn't if two of them left and one went by themselves. All three went together. They knew that the family of God does not need to be alone, but the fact that they need to be together, they need to be united. Deuteronomy 31:8 says, "Is it the Lord who goes before you? He will be with you. He will not leave you nor forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed." He's not going to leave nor forsake. Or you could even listen to Isaiah 41:10, where it says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand." He's doing these things for you, and he has a care and a love for you, for all of us, for his creation, for his people. You see, in this world, we might have moments where we feel alone and we feel as if there's no one around us, separated from everybody. But one person is always by our side, and that is the living God. Our friends of this world are going to let us down, and they could even abandon us during difficult times. But the friend that we have in Jesus will never leave and never forsake us. And what a beautiful thing that is. We can walk through the fires of this world and know that the living God is holding our hand every step of the way. So often we put limitations on God, acting like he doesn't have the power to conquer the obstacles that lie there before us, which is why some people have this fear of failure. Acting like he just doesn't have this power to help us accomplish these things. And the three of these people knew God's power was greater than any fire. 7 times doesn't matter. Whatever the flame is that Nebuchadnezzar have, we know that our God is greater. And we need to remember the exact same truth so we don't fail to take some of the opportunities in life, because we're spending all of our energy and all of our time thinking about how we can't accomplish something. Because Philippians 4:13 tells us what? I can do some things, I can do partial things, I can do all things through him who strengthens me. His will be done. Not our will, though. His will be done. But I can do all things through him who strengthens me. Never forget, though, who strengthens you. Because if you think you strengthen yourself, you have mistaken. He strengthens all of us. We have a fear of failure. We shouldn't, because he gives us our strength. The next thing that we mentioned on our list earlier was rejection. And few things in life feel worse than rejection. Could you imagine being the Son of God, though, and coming down to see his creation and facing rejection from your own creation? We have the opportunity to belong to a person that was rejected by his own creation. He knows all about rejection because he faced it head on. Yet he is still calling us home and not returning the favor of rejecting us when we first rejected him. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were rejected by the king and others because they didn't want to worship this image that was there before them. Didn't want to bow down and worship these false idols. However, the three of these folks knew that if they held fast to God, they would at the end they would not be rejected, but instead they would be embraced by God on high. It's a beautiful thing. For the Lord will not forsake his people; he will not abandon his heritage, is what Psalm 94:14 tells us. The next thing that's on our list that we mentioned earlier was uncertainty. What about uncertainty? My goodness, can life be uncertain? Can it feel unpredictable at times? The king thought he had it all figured out, though, didn't he? He thought there was no unpredictability and everything was figured out. He thought if he threw them in, it would surely happen, until he saw the three of them, with the fourth, walking through the fire. Not bound up like they were when they were thrown in, but walking. You see, we try to plan ahead and make plans for this and make plans for that. But for a Christian, we should not feel uncertain, because we know the truth comes when we read Matthew 6. We read about this a little bit this morning. It says, "Therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is life not more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not more valuable than they? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his span of life?" We should probably all circle, highlight, and underline Matthew 6, verse 27 specifically, which is the end that is telling us that why, how can we, being anxious about something, add a single span to our life? He says, stop being so anxious about tomorrow, because it won't add a single hour to your life. On top of that, though, we need to reflect back to the story from Daniel 4. What will God do? God will deliver us. We need to trust that. We need to know that. The world wants you to be uncertain about God, and the world wants you to be uncertain about Him being able to take care of you. But family, we need to be certain that we have a salvation that saves and a living God that is capable of doing what He promised He would do. The next thing we have is something bad happening. Challenging times in life will happen. Simply look at these three individuals. They knew what typically happened when people went against the king, and they knew that they were going to be thrown into the fire, but they didn't let that change them. They continued to stay steadfast because they weren't afraid that something bad would happen, because they knew that God would take care of them. And they found comfort in Isaiah 41:13. For I, the Lord your God, hold your right hand. It is I who say to you, fear not, for I am the one who helps you. Praise God that we don't have to live this life alone, and we don't have to be alone. Getting hurt is another thing that we mentioned. And when we start to have this fear of getting hurt, we need to know, and we talked about in our Bible study this morning, the world can hurt us, the world can attack us, but the world can't crush us. And we have something greater still awaiting us. The other thing is being judged. Would you rather be judged by the world who judges unfairly, or would you rather be judged by the true and just judge at the end of the world? I would rather be judged wrongfully by the world and convicted, I guess you could say, by the world of not being a good person, and being judged correctly and rightly and found approved by the one who created the world on that final day. Because the final judgment, the judgment that determines life in heaven or life in hell, is far more important than being deemed as a morally good person by people here on the earth that make truth as fluid as the water that flows down the river. Inadequacy, God's made you to be something so special. God has made you to have confidence, and God has molded you. We talked about this morning, but He is the potter and we are the clay. He did not make a vessel that is set up for failure, but instead He made a vessel that is set up for success and set up for a life that should be living for Him and should inherit heaven with Him. And the last thing that we look at, the 10 fears that hold people back, is a loss of freedom. I talked about this at the very moment, but sometimes we can bend the truth, quote unquote, in this world because we have a fear that we'll lose some of our freedom. We have to say certain things so we can keep freedom in this world. The freedom that we should really be after is the freedom that we find in Christ, and the freedom that we can receive through His blood whenever we accept Him, and we can have the freedom from the sin that is ensnaring us. We shouldn't be after freedom here in this world, you could say. We should be setting in freedom with Him. And John 8:36 is a beautiful verse. And you should also circle, highlight, and underline that, because if the Son sets you free, what will you be? Free indeed. This evening, I don't know where you're at. I don't know what you have going on. Maybe you fall into 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 2 out of 10 of these fears. And I'm not sure if you were, or if you struggle with change or loneliness or uncertainty, or maybe being judged or a loss of freedom or different things like that. But if you are being held down by different things and you need to taste what true freedom is, Jesus is the one that can set you free. And when He sets you free, you can be free indeed. So if you have anything on your heart tonight, you can come forward. You can make your request known. You can give your life to Christ, or you can just make something right and loosen the things of this world that are holding you back from being closer to Him. And so we encourage you to come forward as we stand and as we sing. Thank you.